Now, education is something that many of us in the developed world take for granted, but for millions of children globally, an education could be their ticket out of poverty. In sub-Saharan Africa, 32 million children have never been to school and simply don't have basic reading abilities. Well, Project Hello World aims to create digital schools so that children without access to formal schooling can access this through the internet, and I'm delighted to say I'm joined by the founder and director of the project, Katrin Macmillan. Welcome to This Day Live. I suppose the first thing I want to ask you is, with so many children in rural areas not being able to access school, you're bravely going down the digital route, but in some of those areas there's no electricity, so how on earth do you access the internet?
Well, we build what are called Hello Hubs, so they're outdoor, solar-powered, internet-enabled computer kiosks with large touch screens and rugged keypads, so they're totally energy autonomous.
Right. And obviously, solar power, that's not cheap. So how do you go about funding a project like that? Is it purely on donations?
It is. Projects for All is the charity. It's a UK and a US registered charity, and Project Hello World is our main project at the moment, and we're funded by foundations and philanthropists.
So Project World, as I understand it, Hello World, started 15 months ago, and you have a pilot running in Nigeria. Tell me about that pilot.
We launched in Nigeria, 15 months ago, and we built a Hello Hub in Suleja, which is about an hour and 45 minutes north of the capital city, we've been testing it for a year to see what data comes back to figure out how the kids use the internet when they get online for the first time, what kind of educational software they're interested in, and what happens when children can become autodidactic. And this year, we're ready to roll it out to more countries and more locations.
And what age group are we talking? Primary school or older than that?
It's right through. We're the youngest regular users are about 2 years old, and they sit on the knees of their brothers and sisters. And each screen has a kind of semicircular bench with, on average, about 18 children using a screen at a time. And so they teach each other how to get online and how to use these games and how to learn to type. So the little ones are about 2. And we've got people right through to higher education and adults, parents using it as well.
So is it numeracy and literacy? And what kind of level of education are they likely to come away with?
Well, I think the possibilities are really limitless. The work is based on Sugata Mitra's Hole in the Wall project. He won the TED Prize in 2013 for his 10 years of research into how children can learn with access to the internet. The first thing they do when they get online is they teach themselves to type. I think they identify really quickly that in order to navigate the system, they have to be able to use the keypad, use the touch screen. And after that, they start playing numeracy games, literacy games. In the future rollouts, we'll get a baseline test of what their literacy is when they begin, and how they progress through the system. But we've had cases of children looking up quantum physics in a second language within months. So the possibilities really are limitless in my view.
I mean, it is absolutely fantastic that these children are being given this opportunity. But again, if you look at rural areas in the developing world and you look at families, they have many children, and that's mainly because mum and dad go out to work and they need the kids either to look after their other brothers and sisters or to work the land. So how do you convince adults within those community that education is important? Because many of the older generation will say they don't need to be able to read and write because they're going to take over the family farm, or they're going to continue doing what their ancestors have been doing for centuries.
Every community that I've lived and worked in across Africa has identified 2 things. And the first is that they want their children to have a better life than they have had. And when you really drill down into what that means and what the possibilities are, they'll say that they need to be able to participate in the economy. And in order to do that, they'll identify education. So I think that most parents do want their children to be able to make more money, to have a better life, and therefore to be able to read and write. The other thing that they very often tell me is that they want to tell their story. And I think that that's a really significant part of Project Hello World. It's also about community-led, non-partisan journalism, so that people can share their news, tell their story, connect with the world, host a radio station, make movies, edit movies, share their photos. So I think those 2 issues have always been actually critical to almost every community I've worked with. But I think the other part of getting parents and adults and senior members of the community on board is making it relevant across the community. So there are no limits to access. It's for grandmothers and grandfathers as much as parents and children as well. And in that way, we believe that the system is safe and will be protected because it's relevant and useful to everyone.
Some of these villages have, lots of, hundreds of people. So how do kids get into these hubs? I mean, how many children can access one hub at any particular time, and how many people can benefit from that?
Suleja, where we launched, it has a population of, well, there are varying reports, but perhaps 5 million, so wow. It's a large town. The hub is Wi-Fi enabled, so if you have a personal device, you can also be near the hub to use that. It has charging stations, so you can charge your personal devices. We've discovered that children and adults sharing a screen is more beneficial to their learning than working alone on a tablet. They teach each other and they compete and show off. But there's definitely scope to build many more in this
So how many benefit at any one time, and how long do they spend online?
There are sometimes hundreds of people around the hub. It's self-organised, so we don't dictate how long any one user can use the system. And the questions when we were building were often about that. How long can I stay? And we said, I don't know. It's up to the community. And it's up to you to decide who has access and how long they have access for, and to make it fair.
And what about security? Again, because in these poverty-stricken areas, this could potentially be a magnet for people to rip off the solar panels and try and flog them to earn some money.
Yeah, there's a lot of really valuable equipment in a Hello Hub. The way that we work is that we don't build a Hello Hub. The community builds it themselves with our support, and we also ask them to make an investment in the system, whatever they can invest. So it might be helping us negotiate for the solar, labour certainly to dig the holes and put in the steel, negotiating for the steel, feeding the children, putting us up, helping with transport. And we invite people from across the community to participate. And we feel, and we are seeing, that when a community invests in a project in this way, and when they build it and understand it, they are interested in protecting it. And there's no system that you couldn't tear down, rip apart, and sell for its component parts. But if it's worth more to a community assembled and connected to the internet, then they'll look after it.
And what about things like, I mean, you started in Nigeria, which is fine, but what about when you get to places where, let's say, there is a bit more censorship when it comes to the internet? So let's say not in Nigeria, let's say you move to rural areas of China, where we all know the internet is highly censored. So how do people go about accessing educational materials, but also wanting to find out what's happening in the wider world? Because there just won't be that ability.
No, I mean, it's extremely problematic and worrying, censorship on access to the world's body of knowledge and news. We don't have the ability to bypass the laws of a country. So we don't censor anything, obviously, and we don't even put parental controls. We leave that up to the...
That was my next question. So things like, parental controls and things like pornography or anything that is going to, be potentially sensitive to children. How do you restrict that, or can you?
Well, if it's legal in the country, in our host country, then we don't put restrictions on. But we form community groups, parents groups, teachers groups, and a women's group, and we talk about the dangers out there on the internet, bullying and exploitation, and obviously pornography as well, and there's violence and inappropriate content. So we talk about what's out there, and we ask them what they'd like to do about it, and we give them the decision-making authority. It's much less of an issue than those of us in the West assume it to be. I think that we have a preoccupation here with pornography that doesn't exist there.
What about why you chose Nigeria? You're looking at also Uganda, but why did you decide to start in Nigeria?
Nigeria has 8.7 million children out of school. It's a quarter of Africa's extreme poor. Boko Haram is actively opposing access to education. It seems like the right place to start.
Okay. And you're going to be rolling this out into Uganda and into Peru as well?
Yeah. This year we're launching 5 hubs in Peru, 5 hubs in Uganda, and we have a commitment to get back to Nigeria with another 5 hubs. I'm proudest to say that we publish our how-to guides, both from the community point of view and also the tech, and a group in Nigeria has used that to start building their own in Lagos. And in that way we hope to get to scale. So we want people to build their own and use our guides, and we will support them in doing that.
And so when it comes to keeping Hello Project World alive. How do you exist? You mentioned donations, so where does the money come from?
We have foundation sponsors and individual philanthropists, so it's charitable fundraising at the moment. I think in terms of keeping the project growing and getting to scale, open sourcing all of our programming and publishing our guides, we hope that other people will pick up this project and do it too.
And if somebody wants to donate, Katrin, where can they do that?
It's Projects for All, so it's projectsforall.org.
OK, Katrin Macmillan, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.